Hello, this is Ken Ferry with this week's Boots in the Field report. Spring is in the air as customers' questions turn to spring preparations. Growers are asking about getting started on the spring workload. The big question before you start is the soil dry enough? For our vertical passes, it's all about wheel tracks. So is the soil dry enough to handle the weight of the equipment without putting in compaction? With horizontal tillage, it's all about the moisture at and right below that tillage depth. Will it put in a density layer, or are you going to put in a compaction layer? If you push either one of these, it'll create a gift that keeps on giving all season long. The no-till ground will support equipment and the weight of the equipment sooner than the fall tilled fields. Now, leveling fall chiseled ground with vertical tillage is the one that if you jump across the line too early, you're going to have visible wheel tracks that show up after the crop emerges. In some areas, it's dry enough that guys are applying spring anhydrous. Now, this is good. I like to see a minimum of 2 weeks between my spring ammonia and planting if I'm not making an effort to stay off of the anhydrous strip. What we really need more than time is moisture to tame down that anhydrous core in the soil. I don't recommend spring strip till with anhydrous. It's just too high of a risk if we don't get enough moisture to tame down the anhydrous core. I've done service calls on February strip till anhydrous, killing corn at V5 when we don't get enough moisture to tame down the core. As the corn grows, hits the anhydrous core, starts to torch the root systems, and the plants start to wilt. That's a tough spot when you're trying to make that replant call. How much is dead? How much is damaged? How much will die in the future? Just 1-2 inches of rain can fix a lot of issues. So getting it on now will make things safer when it comes time for planting, assuming conditions are right. You can also use your RTK auto steer to be sure you plant between the cores. In this case, we don't need the rain or the 2 weeks to tame the core down. By the time the roots find that core later on, it will already be tamed down. After an application of anhydrous, the core pH will swing clear to a 14, in which no root or biological activity is going to survive that. With moisture and time, this swings back to a safer zone. If we are applying anhydrous followed by tillage and not going to be able to tell where the core is, again, it's best to wait at least 2 weeks and hope some rain will come before planting. I know, you're thinking, Ken, I've done spring anhydrous forever and I've never had issues. Well, that's what the guys tend to say when we get called on a service call with dead corn. I've done this forever. If it only happens 1 out of 10 years, the risk is still too high. Next fall's record crop starts at the seedbed. If you're applying anhydrous in no-till bean stubble and you're planning to one-pass it or hit it with a harrow or a finisher before planting, maybe hold up with that tillage pass until we get moisture. If the spring turns out to be dry and we don't get that moisture before planting, just no-till between your anhydrous strips. Some growers are thinking about running the strip fresheners to get ready for planting. And I say if the ground is dry and firm enough to support the equipment weight, I say go ahead. Many of you use this pass to apply some of your 28 and 32% along with some ATS as part of your 4-hour nitrogen program. This too, I would say go ahead if it's dry enough. The freshening of the strip now will give you a sterile seedbed with uniform moisture to plant into later. While applying N now seems early for an N application, and you might worry, will it be there later in the season? Well, the nitrogen we put on with row fresheners is not for late in the season, it's upfront N. With its location close to the row and the fact that it's banded, it'll give you plenty of protection from loss. The balance of your N program should be designed to meet the N needs throughout the season. Planter and freshener applied N usually only amounts to about a third or less of our total nitrogen program. This N, due to its placement in a band near the row, has about 2x horsepower compared to the same amount broadcast. Liquid N is only half urea, and at the lower rates, along with the RTK placement to the side of the future row, the risk of seedling burn is low. If your freshener is leaving this UAN on top and you're not incorporating it, I'd recommend a stabilizer. Put a urease inhibitor in there. Now, not all areas are dry enough to get rolling. Don't let the neighbors set the pace this spring, and go out and check your own fields to make sure they're ready. 80% of the compaction issues I do service calls on in the summer trace their roots back to the first pass made in the spring. Yes, the one you're thinking about making. Don't let your neighbor cause you to jump off the starting line before the gun goes off and get yourself disqualified in this race. Same is true for your burn down programs. Be sure the sprayer isn't leaving a wheel track that you'll have trouble with later, especially in your no-till. Soil testing crews continue to work on the spring testing as we finish up the yield map season. As some of you come back from your winter hideaway, we need to finish up your yield map meetings before spring really gets rolling. Those of you that are still in your winter hiding place and want to go through your yield maps, we can do that in a Zoom call. Just give the office a call. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.